Hey guys, Sundown Rider here. This is going to be my chapter review to Nanatsu no Taizai, or the Seven Deadly Sins 253, Lost Grace. Now this chapter was quite interesting just because of the differences in different characters and stuff we saw, and the little reveals and things like that, especially the big reveal at the end. So not too much happened in terms of progressing the story, like just plunging straight or driving straight forward, but in terms of developing future plot lines and filling in some gaps and just little things along with the reveal. It was a decent chapter, a good solid about 3.5, maybe 4, because of that reveal at the end. But I think about 3.5 would be fair. So in terms of going through it chronologically, we start with Elizabeth, who, with the dawn of a new day, she's kind of this really morose, melancholy type of mood. And she only has 2 days left to live. Now it's been ages. That day that she had to live before, well, the third of the 2 days that she has to live, that we've just gone through. It's been a long ass day for her. So these days are gonna take a while. We then go to King, who looks after his sister and his new wifey for lifey, whilst also being concerned about both Ban and Meliodas. He's not too sure what's going to go down, and he's there having to look after the girls, and he's just basically screwed. He's just holding the fort until one of the Meliodas or Ban come back, and it's going to be Ban that comes back. We then go to Galtha, who's being repaired by Merlin. Now this part was definitely interesting because Merlin's impressed by the OG Galtha, by his craftsmanship, saying that she can't really improve on Galtha's build or anything like that, and she's just going to really have to put him back together. Galtha then goes on to tell Merlin about a request he would like to make, something to do with an alteration of his body or some sort of modification. But it also has something to do. He then goes on to tell Merlin that something which surprises her, and it's something to do with his modification and how the OG Galtha may have ended the war 3,000 years prior. So the question, therefore, is what the hell is the upgrade that he wants, or what's the modification or the thing to do with his body or his remaking that ended the war like 3,000 years ago? Because if I remember correctly, I haven't done much research. But we know the war ended, the war 3,000 years ago, Holy War 1. We know that war ended in a very suspicious manner. I think the goddesses had the upper hand for a while, and then suddenly everything was upset and everything went tits up, and then we don't really know what happened after that, and we know that Galtha did something. Let me just put my phone on silent. Yeah, so we know that Galtha did something. And that ended the Holy War, but we don't really know what it was, but it might be to do with this modification. Merlin makes mention of that. She's like, okay, so does this have something to do with how Galtha ended the Holy War those 3,000 years ago? And I'm just like, what the hell could it be, though? Is it like some, upon his death or something, some mega curse releases and like the goddesses and demons can't exist in the same plane or some shit, and it took like 3,000 years to wear out, which is why the goddesses and the demons are back together now. But then that wouldn't really explain... like for instance Meliodas being in the same plane as, for instance, any of the altars that the Druids have or anything like that. So I'm not too sure exactly what this is, but like I said, I don't really know what to expect. So let me know what you guys think about this new modification that Galtha wants to his body or to his whatever. I don't know what it's going to be. We then go to where the main really bulk of the chapter was, which was Escanor and Hawk, who are just chilling. They're just walking around, and Escanor tries to get Hawk to ask Merlin to see how she feels about him, which was a funny exchange. He's just there, and he's in his day mode, so he's full of pride and everything. But he's just there holding Hawk by the head, like, you need to ask Merlin how she feels about me. So we then go to the goddesses, Rudusiel, Sariel, and Tamiel, who are drinking heavily, and they're already very drunk, And after invigorating, he uses invigorate on himself. This is Rudusiel. He cures himself of the drink, but then he suddenly notices a presence. Now, obviously, just having seen Escanor, we knew that the presence was going to be Escanor, and this is where the chapter got dope. Rudusiel knows about Escanor's power from somewhere. He looks at him and he's like, how did you get your power? And Escanor's just like, well, like it's something he didn't really know how to answer, I think, which was what this chapter is going for. Because he's had it since birth, essentially. So, and then I really loved how Escanor gave Rudusiel some lip about his possession of Margaret. He's just like, oh look, it's Lady Margaret possessed body, and I was like, "Ooh, is that like a slight burn?" He's just like looking at him, and he was looking at him in that way, like he doesn't like him. And I like that about Escanor. And he knows, he's clued up about who's being a biatch and who's not, and he knows that Rudusiel isn't one to trust. And then he also goes on to do the whole "I can't stand it when humans smaller than me look down upon me." I was like, "Yo, what a boss!" So Rudusiel then questions. Well, actually, after Rudusiel questions Escanor as to the nature of his powers and why he couldn't feel it before, Rudusiel tells Escanor of how his power grows till noon and then goes back down after noon. So he knows of Escanor's powers, and we're just like, okay, like, how does he know? So Escanor, much like a lot of us would have, not like a lot of us actually, because we know that the goddesses don't know about his ability. But Escanor mistakes this for his fame, like, oh yeah, you know about my famed curse and everything like that. And Rudusiel gets triggered at this point. You can see him like just lose a bit of his cool, because he when he's called a curse, he's just like, don't call that power a curse, boy. And he's also like a little triggered by the fact that Escanor doesn't really answer how he got said power. So then he gets in a scuffle with Escanor, and although the fight itself is quite light and no one really gets hurt, I mean, it didn't seem to be very cynical. They weren't really trying to kill each other. I mean, even Rudusiel doesn't really cut up Escanor. He cuts off his shirt, but he doesn't really draw any blood. So I was like, okay, even Rudusiel here didn't want to draw any blood by the looks of things. So we do learn, however, that the archangels possess abilities akin to those of the commandments, called graces. Now this kind of makes sense, if they have the commandments, that they gotta have graces. And a commandment, this is kind of the distinction between them in my mind. The commandments, they're a curse, okay? So the commandments work in such a way that the design is they act upon others, but also the user. But primarily, its design is to act upon others. So if you turn your back on me, you become my slave. If you harbor any hatred in your heart towards me or towards anything, then you're rendered useless. So it's always about affecting someone else. The graces, however, affect the user. So the grace only acts on the user. By the looks of things at the moment, we don't know if he can use his grace on someone else and speed them up or some shit like that. But what we find out is that Rudusiel has the grace of Flash, so he's really speedy. Sariel has the grace of Tornado. I think we've seen Tornado, where he literally unleashes tornadoes, much like Hauser. And Tarmiel with Ocean, and I don't think we've seen Ocean before. Now Mael's grace, this was the fun part. Mael's grace was named Sunshine. His grace was Sunshine. I was like, yo, okay, now we know where it's come from. So Mael's grace was called Sunshine, and that's the power Escanor possesses, which is why our boy Rudusiel is just like, yo, where'd you get that power from? It's his younger brother's power. Sunshine was Mael's ability, his grace. So Escanor's pride swells even further at this point, kind of wrongly so, but you can kind of see where he's coming from. He finds out that this is a godly power, and I possess this power of a god. So he's all like, yeah, like I'm a god, I'm a god made man and shit like that. And then he goes on to say that the grace chose him, which sounds legit, as he has had it from birth. From as far as we know, Escanor has had Sunshine from birth. But then the question is, how did the grace find its way towards Escanor? It wasn't a reincarnation type thing. I assume, like a commandment, the grace will stay within the dead body of the archangel. So, because a commandment will stay within the dead body of within a commandment. So I assume the same could be said for maybe a grace here. Once an archangel dies, it stays with that archangel unless it's pulled back or something. So I assume somehow, after decomposition or some shit, the grace was freed from Mael's dead body, and it just kind of flew around. It was just kind of in the nether realm or some shit, just flying around the air, and then somehow it found Escanor and thought, yo, this is the person I want to be in. So it was something to do with like some form of attraction, but even that doesn't really sound like a good reason. Is the grace itself sentient or some form? So really the only two options I have is the grace itself may be sentient and like, okay, I'm going to go to this guy, just thinking about its next steps, or it goes to the next best vessel, and in this case Escanor was the next best thing, even though Mael died years prior to Escanor's birth. So I'm not sure how these graces work and how it got to Escanor, but it did. And then there's the question of But was it with Escanor when he was born, or was it with Escanor when that chick was there with him and she kind of said to him like, "Oh, you've got this special ability," and she gets him out of the kingdom where he was born after he assaulted his brother and stuff like that. So I think it might have something to do with that lady that was there with him. Maybe the lady had something to do with Mael. We don't know. We'll find out sooner or later. So then Escanor and Ruduciel laugh off the whole situation, but Ruduciel is defo planning something under the radar. You can see in his face, like he's laughing. He seems all lighthearted and shit, but he's gonna do something. So the important part here, the whole situation with Mael is confusing. Our boy had Sunshine and was supposedly killed by Estarossa. Okay. Now, people were saying, oh, maybe Estarossa attacked at night when Mael was at his weakest. But we know that it looks to me like the Graces aren't the pinnacle of... the Graces don't define an Archangel's ability or power at a certain stage. So, for instance, Ruduciel, even without Flash, he's still incredibly powerful. And same with Sariel and Tamiel. And I assume... our boy Mael was incredibly powerful without Sunshine. It's just that Sunshine bolstered his abilities and he became amazingly powerful once he instilled Sunshine and once he utilized Sunshine. So he was still strong without it. So Estarossa must have done something. Maybe he utilized like some very clever... he manipulated Mael in some way that activated his own commandment. And he pushed Mael into a situation where Mael couldn't do anything to attack Estarossa because he held hatred in his heart. Maybe Estarossa killed like Mael's sister or some shit while Mael was there, and Mael hated him and he couldn't do anything because of Estarossa's commandment. And then Estarossa was like, okay, GG, I'm gonna clear this place up. Seems like a very Estarossa thing to do. You know, I won't attack Mael, I'll attack the weaker one first, activate my commandment, then it's game over for these guys. So it seems like there's definitely something underhanded that must have occurred. I doubt Estarossa, as powerful as he is, would have stood toe to toe with someone who had Sunshine during, even if it was during the night. Would have stood toe to toe with someone, unless it was like midnight or something, and Mael couldn't activate it like Escanor could. You know, Escanor just visualized kind of Merlin, and he was like, "That's my son," and he became Escanor for a while. He became daytime Escanor for a while. Unless Mael couldn't do that, then maybe the whole day-night thing could be an issue. But like I said, Mael would have still been incredibly strong, even at midnight without Sunshine. So I smell a big-ass lie somewhere, and I think Ruduciel is at the center of it. Maybe there's some sort of betrayal going on here. But his whole reaction to finding Escanor utilizing Sunshine in this chapter kind of seems like the whole betrayal thing, like I thought last chapter, kind of turns it on its head, because he seems to really care about Sunshine and the loss of his younger brother. So I'm not too sure how this is going to turn out. I thought for sure there was going to be betrayal all over the place, but I'm not too sure, because the goddesses do seem to give a shit about Mael. But their reaction last chapter to being asked about Mael was really suspicious. So I'm not too sure how things are going to go down. Now, there's someone on Reddit, Traitor, spelled Treytre, on Reddit, has an interesting theory. He said Estarossa, so this is kind of like just the Cliff Notes version. Estarossa was weak, somehow managed to defeat Mael and absorbed his abilities but also his memories. So he absorbed his abilities and also he absorbed his memories, but not his grace. So this would make sense of the whole dream situation that he had about Elizabeth, you know? If he absorbed his abilities and his memories, that would explain the whole thing where Elizabeth's addressing what we think is Estarossa, and she's like, "Oh, did you fight with your brother again?" But she may in actual fact be talking to Mael, which would make so much sense, because she knows Mael, or she would have known Mael. She knew Ruduciel, Tamiel, Sariel. She knew all the archangels. So for her to be saying you fought with your brother again, it could be any of the three if they're all older than Mael. We know that Ruduciel is definitely older than Mael, and he seems to be maybe the youngest of the four. So that could be who she was addressing. So if Estarossa possesses the memories of Mael, maybe something is going down here, and I don't know where this is going. I don't know what to tell you guys, but this does seem a bit fishy, and I do credit Traitor with this. So it makes sense in that regard in terms of the memories, but I still don't see how Mael would have been defeated by Estarossa by his wands, unless, of course, like I said before, Estarossa did something and then all this shit kicked off. So there's definitely something afoot here. I just don't know what it is. So let me know what you guys thought of the chapter. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I need to do like One Piece, One Punch Man, the new one just came out, and My Hero Academia. So I'll be definitely on within like tomorrow and the day after, definitely. So I'll see you guys then.